During a tomb expedition, my genetic anemia caused me to overexert myself. And my husband's childhood sweetheart cried, begging me to give her the last piece of compressed biscuit. Sister, I know you're healthy, this little bit of hunger is nothing to you, but my blood sugar is low and I'm about to faint. Please save me. While I was thinking, Julian smiled gently at me. Honey, don't you usually only eat imported snacks? Claire is anemic, let her have this biscuit, be good. I found it funny. The biscuit is for emergencies. What will I do if I give it to her? I stuffed the biscuit into my mouth. Julian's expression remained unchanged, but he ignored me the rest of the way, and even carried Claire, who couldn't walk anymore, on his back. When we exited the tomb, he locked me in a secret chamber. He held Claire in his arms and said, Claire is weak, and almost died because of you. I'm going to starve you here for 3 days. I'll let you out when you faint from hunger. I didn't say anything, just took out a candle from my bag and lit it in the southeast corner. They didn't know that I was the 18th generation successor of the Tomb Raiders captains, Majin Xiaowei. After lighting the candle, I took out the necklace around my neck and pressed an inconspicuous button. I knew someone would receive my signal. Julian looked through the lattice door of the stone chamber and saw me lighting the candle. A mocking smile appeared on his lips. Arya, even at this point you still think praying will help? He held Claire in his arms, his patience wearing thin. Claire was so hungry her blood sugar dropped, but you wouldn't even share a small piece of biscuit with her. I want to see how you survive in a place like this by yourself. Before he finished speaking, the group of wealthy young men outside began to clamor. If Arya's scared, she should quickly apologize to Julian. I heard there are zongzi, corpses or creatures guarding the tomb. In this tomb, it won't be easy to deal with if you wake them up. If you ask me, she deserves to be taught a lesson like this. Julian starving her for 3 days is too little. Claire begged her so humbly. How could she be so cruel as not to save her? This is a matter of life and death. Does she really think she's still Arya? Now Claire is Julian's darling. How much longer does she think she can be Arya? Julian's expression darkened when he heard these words, and he shot them a warning look. But when he looked at me, the arrogant smile remained on his face, as if he were bestowing a favor. Arya, you're taking advantage of being a senior member of the expedition team to maliciously bully Claire. Considering you're my wife, I can make an exception for you. Here's the deal, as long as you kneel down, apologize to Claire, and promise never to be difficult with her again, and not be so petty, I'll let you out immediately. Compared to what you've done, this is already a very light punishment. These words were like countless needles piercing my heart, the dense pain almost silencing me. Who is the one being difficult, me or Claire? Ever since she joined the expedition team as Julian's friend, she has been targeting me everywhere, emphasizing overtly and covertly that she is Julian's soulmate, and that I am just a decoration occupying a position. I've never paid any attention to it. But Julian has completely accepted her narrative, believing that I am narrow-minded and make things difficult for her everywhere, repeatedly using for my own good, as an excuse to discipline and suppress me. In just 6 months, my decision-making power in the expedition team has been completely emptied out, and I have become a dispensable logistician in the team. Even last time, when Claire's wrong commands led the team into danger, he blamed it on me. Just as I was about to open my mouth to refute, I spotted Claire's movement and reminded her. Claire, don't move. There's a special brick next to your foot. It's a very dangerous mechanism, don't touch it. Claire glanced at me imperceptibly, then clutched her wrist, looking aggrieved. Does sister think my education isn't as high as yours, so I don't understand anything and I'm stupid and need you to teach me all the time? Yes, I don't have as much experience as sister. Julian, let sister out. It's my fault for being useless and constantly causing trouble for the team. Everyone should lock me up in here. I'm the one who needs to be punished. Before she could finish speaking, Julian put his arm around her and comforted her. What are you thinking, Claire? It's not your fault. Don't listen to her being suspicious. She just likes to show off. Julian turned his head and frowned at me, sneering. Arya, it seems you haven't changed your ways at all. You can't even learn to be peaceful when you're locked up, still thinking about belittling Claire. It's just a broken brick for decoration. What's wrong with touching it? The surrounding people also laughed. Exactly, Arya must have read too many novels. Thinking she's a martial arts master who can spot traps at a glance. Immediately after, Julian actually stepped on that brick. With a soft click sound, countless poisoned crossbow bolts instantly shot out from secret compartments all over the walls of the chamber. I was shocked, and using muscle memory, rolled to the side, barely dodging the deadly rain of arrows. Julian and the other wealthy kids were scared out of their wits by this sudden change. Oh my God, what is this? There really is a trap. The crossbow bolts hit the opposite stone wall with such force that the arrow feathers vibrated. Another round of arrows came, this time even denser, blocking all my escape routes. I twisted my body with all my strength, but still felt a numbness in my arm as a crossbow bolt grazed it. I clutched the wound tightly as Julian cried out from outside the door, "Arya!" Before he could finish, Claire grabbed his sleeve, tearfully raising her slender wrist. "Julian, I think I sprained my wrist. It's all my fault. I was so scared just now. I was wrong, I shouldn't have followed you to such a dangerous place, and I shouldn't have made you quarrel over a compressed biscuit. If it wasn't for me, my sister wouldn't have encountered this." Hearing this, the tension on Julian's face eased. He steadied himself and scrutinized me through the gap. "Arya, if you had just corrected your attitude and reflected on your mistakes, you wouldn't have suffered this for no reason. It's just a few scratches and you're already in such a mess." When Claire was so hungry she was seeing stars and getting dizzy. "How could you have the nerve to eat alone?" Looking at Julian's self-righteous expression, I was disgusted and couldn't help but shout, "Julian, I have anemia too." And I reminded everyone before we left that anyone with low blood sugar should bring emergency rations. "You're the one who indulged her, and let her exchange the chocolates in her bag for cosmetics. If she starves to death, what does it have to do with me?" Julian's face turned green and white in an instant, and he scolded in a deep voice, "Why are you so stubborn? To avoid apologizing and to justify your mistakes, you're willing to push the responsibility onto me and Claire. That's right, you've always been proud and concerned about your image. I actually expected you to learn to be gentle and humble." As soon as he finished speaking, I suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion and collapsed to the ground. The wound on my arm was small, but a cold numbness was spreading rapidly. The next moment, a warm current gushed from my lower abdomen. I must have disturbed the fetus when dodging the danger just now. My child is going to be gone. Originally, I planned to give Julian a surprise after this expedition, but he has completely ruined it. The crowd outside the door also exclaimed when they saw this scene. "No way she's bleeding? That puddle on the ground is... Oh my God, Julian, is Arya pregnant? And you locked her in there?" The crowd's discussion stunned Julian as well. He grabbed the stone door and tried to see more clearly from the opening. When he confirmed that it was the blood spreading beneath me, his eyes instantly reddened, and he immediately shouted at the people outside to open the stone door quickly. Just as he was about to step forward, Claire grabbed him tightly, whispering something significant that only the two of them could hear. "Julian, isn't Arya unable to get pregnant?" Julian stopped moving, and suspiciously scrutinized me, his voice carrying a tremor he himself didn't notice. "Arya, are you really pregnant?" "Heh, I must be out of my mind. The doctor already said your body would have difficulty having children again. Is this animal blood you brought? You're really something, Arya. Your scheming is so deep that I almost believed it." I clenched my fists, my nails digging deeply into my palms, and I no longer had any expectations of him. Because of my physical condition, I've always had difficulty conceiving. But for Julian, I secretly took countless medications and nursed myself for a whole year. This child arrived quietly a month ago, and even I was careful not to make a sound. I never expected that the child would be killed by him like this. Even now, he still chooses to believe Claire's groundless guess, and is unwilling to give me even a shred of trust. Ignoring the pain in my lower body and disregarding Julian's accusations, I struggled to crawl near the stone door to check for hidden mechanisms on the door, but Claire suddenly reached her hand over from the other side of the doorway, and violently grabbed my injured arm. Before I could react, she smeared a cream on my wound. "Sister, I feel guilty for hurting you like this. Let me help you apply the medicine." "What are you doing?" I hurriedly shook her off, and a burning pain immediately shot through my wound. In an instant, I felt my breathing become shallow, my chest felt constricted, and red rashes quickly spread across my body. The familiar symptoms made me feel so uncomfortable that I couldn't even lift my head. This was the reaction I had when I was allergic to cat hair. Claire. She had tampered with the ointment again. The others, upon seeing this, all looked puzzled. Arya, what's wrong? Julian has already seen through your self-inflicted injury scheme. You don't need to act so committed, do you? She really looks like someone who's terminally ill. Julian's gaze fell on me, and when he saw my unusually strange state, there was a hint of wavering in his eyes. Arya, you. He had just opened his mouth when Claire interrupted him with a look of panic. I'm sorry. Julian, I didn't mean to. Arya must have gotten an infection in her wound. It's all my fault for not disinfecting it when I applied the medicine. I'm just always doing good deeds that backfire. As she spoke, she threw away the ointment and raised her hand to slap her own face, her eyes filled with remorse. Julian stopped her movement, tenderly rubbing her wrist. Don't overthink it. Arya, she is just unlucky today. She deserves to suffer this. I watched this scene with a bitter smile, my hands trembling as I frantically searched for my pills. Finally, I found my allergy medicine and swallowed it, and the pain in my body eased a little. Luckily, I carried allergy medicine with me to prevent unexpected situations. Otherwise, even if I could solve the mystery of the secret room, it would be difficult for me to last until I got out. I stopped looking at Julian. After resting for a while, I staggered to my feet, trying my best to endure the pain from the wound, and began to carefully observe the structure of this secret room. Blood was still flowing continuously from my lower body, and the poison attached to the arrow began to invade my body through my blood, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold wherever it went. I had to leave quickly. Julian saw that I had no intention of reconciling with him or begging for mercy, but instead started looking around for an exit, and a look of annoyance appeared on his face. Don't waste your energy. Let me tell you, this door cannot be opened from the inside. Outside is a 10,000 gene gate. You can only open the door from the outside to get out. If you want to get out of here on your own, you're dreaming. As soon as he finished speaking, a strange rustling sound came from all directions. My heart tightened, and I turned my head sharply, only to see dozens of pairs of scarlet eyes appearing in the dark corners. A violent commotion broke out outside the door. Julian, could the legendary Zongzi really be real? Oh my god. I didn't expect it to be real. It's over. Arya is really finished this time. Arya, you should apologize quickly. These things are no joke. Julian's face turned pale. He grabbed Claire's shoulder in disbelief. Didn't you say this ancient tomb was absolutely safe and there were no dangers? A look of guilt flashed across Claire's face, but it was quickly replaced by a thick layer of fear. I didn't know this thing would actually exist. Julian, let's hurry and let sister out. What if something really happens to her? I don't want our relationship to get any worse because of me. After hearing her words, Julian's expression wavered. He bit his lip, and his tone carried a trace of regret for Arya's unyielding nature. Arya, don't be so stubborn with me. Just lower your head and apologize to Claire for your willfulness, and I'll save you right away, okay? I raised my bloodstained face. Get lost. I retracted my gaze, looking at the things constantly approaching me, and my heart trembled a little. Those Zongzi let out piercing roars, waving their stiff but sharp claws, and pounced towards me. I dodged a zombie's lunge, enduring the sharp pain in my lower abdomen, and dodged within the cramped space. They have poor vision, but are extremely sensitive to the scent of the living. At this moment, they stopped moving, deeply inhaling the bloody scent that permeated the air, completely activated, hissing and following the scent, surrounding me. Julian could no longer remain calm. He directed his companions outside to shoot at the zombies. Half of the zombies stopped moving after being attacked, and the other half fled into the depths of the ancient tomb. Claire leaned close to the crack in the door, and said in a hypocritical tone, Sister, don't be afraid. As long as you get Julian's forgiveness, he will definitely save you. Those things might come back anytime, sister. Don't hold on any longer. Julian's eyes showed a hint of complicated emotions, but he still stubbornly insisted that I apologize. I raised my head, my bloodshot eyes staring fixedly at this man, wishing I could grind my teeth to pieces. I said I did nothing wrong. The severe pain in my lower abdomen and the spread of the poison made my vision go dark. My face was bloodless, and the paleness of my lips even frightened those outside the door. Wait, something seems wrong with Arya. Her face looks terrible. Maybe we should just forget it, Julian. Don't actually cause someone to die. Julian's resolve began to waver. He squatted down, trying to observe my condition through the doorway, but was forced back by my cold gaze. He was instantly enraged, his face ashen, and he ordered someone to open the door. He came in, reached out, and grabbed my hair, trying to drag me out. Tearing pain came from my scalp, and the man's cold voice came from above. I bit my teeth tightly, a trace of blood seeping from the corner of my lips, my voice uncontrollably trembling. Julian, this is the end of us. The man's hands suddenly loosened, then tightened even more. He sneered, grabbed my head and slammed it against the hard doorframe. The end is it. Good. You want to end it, right? Before it ends, apologize to Claire. My forehead hit the rough stone, and warm liquid immediately flowed down. Julian was completely ignited by my resistance, and the blows became heavier and heavier. The combined pain almost made me lose consciousness. Finally, after a long time, he let go, disgustedly wiping the blood on his hand on my clothes, turned around, put his arm around Claire, and prepared to leave with the others. Arya, I gave you a way out, but you didn't cherish it, and you even want to threaten me with ending it all. Then you can stay here. Don't regret it when those things come back. After speaking, he turned around and prepared to evacuate with his people. But in the next second, a stone coffin chained to the top of the tomb suddenly fell. Boom. A cloud of dust was kicked up. Julian and his group turned pale, staring in horror as the stone coffin opened, and a zombie, wearing armor, jumped out of the coffin. Everyone was so frightened that they immediately frantically opened fire, but this time it had no effect at all. Amidst the screams of the crowd, suddenly there was a loud noise. A large hole was blasted in the tomb, and a figure appeared in front of me on a rope. He walked straight to my side. Arya, I'm here to pick you up. Ronan shielded me behind him, attacking the leaping Jiangshi, while pushing me towards the rope. Julian was the first to react, glaring at me intensely. Arya, you brought backup beforehand. That's why you were so fearless? You wait, once we get out, I'll settle accounts with you. Ronan temporarily forced back the Jiangshi, and followed closely behind me as I climbed the rope, ascending upwards. Julian and his group, seeing this, frantically tried to rush over. But a group of Jiangshi had already surrounded them. Several rich kids were grabbed, screaming as they were dragged into the darkness, their voices instantly cut off. This scene completely shattered everyone's mental defenses. They desperately begged me. Arya, this has nothing to do with me. I was just here to watch the fun. Yes, we were all tricked by Julian. Please, Arya, take us with you. Several people, desperate to survive, began to push and shove each other, stepping on their companions to squeeze towards me. Claire, who was originally the furthest away, was suddenly grabbed by the ankle, and she screamed, Julian, save me. But Julian, who had constantly proclaimed his love for her, only cared about saving his own life at this critical moment. Recklessly climbing towards me, his eyes filled with pleading. Arya, this time I was wrong. I was deceived by her. All right, let's not worry about her. Let's get out of here. Let's be good like we used to be, okay? Julian, you bastard. Claire's face turned deathly pale as she grabbed Julian's pants leg, hysterically cursing. Julian's expression darkened, and he kicked her away completely, without any mercy. I watched coldly, then said to Ronan, let's go. The instant we exited the cave, the exploded tomb entrance suddenly collapsed. Isolated on the other side were the desperate wails of Julian's group, and the excited roars of the Jiangshi. In the end, I only saw Julian's face, filled with disbelief. The instant I got out, I completely passed out. When I woke up again, I instinctively reached for my lower abdomen, which was flat and devoid of any signs of life. I knew that my child, the child I had long awaited, was really gone. Tears uncontrollably streamed from the corners of my eyes. Ronan walked in, and his movements faltered when he saw me. Then he stepped forward and embraced me tightly, his voice hoarse and filled with self-blame. Arya, I was late, I'm sorry. I shook my head, unable to suppress the sorrow in my heart, and cried bitterly in his arms for a long time. After a long while, I wiped away my tears and asked in a hoarse voice, "What happened to them?" Ronan told me. He and several other survivors were rescued by the rescue team that arrived later. Although everyone was injured, they had at least saved their lives. The TV screen reported that Julian, the president of Fu Corporation, had been successfully rescued from the depths of an ancient tomb after being missing for 72 hours, with stable vital signs. The scene showed him being carried on a stretcher, his face pale and his eyes closed. Claire threw herself onto him, crying like a pear blossom in the rain, as if in a melodramatic idle drama about life and death. I watched quietly, the warm tea in my hand emanating faint white steam. But in my heart, there was only deathly silence, not even a ripple. Ronan noticed my silence and thoughtfully turned off the TV. "Ronan, help me hire a lawyer. I want a divorce." The first thing Julian did after waking up in the hospital was to call me and settle the score. But the mechanical female voice saying the call couldn't be connected made him frown. He opened WeChat, wanting to send a message, only to find he had been blacklisted. An unprecedented panic instantly seized his heart. This feeling of complete loss of control terrified him more than facing death in the ancient tomb. Ignoring the doctor's objections, he pulled out the 4-drip in his hand and rushed out of the hospital like a madman. He thought I was just throwing a tantrum, that as long as he went back and coaxed me as he used to, everything would return to where it was before. But he was wrong. When Julian opened the door of the house with his key, he was greeted by deathly silence. The house was empty, and everything that belonged to me had disappeared, as if I had never lived here. He walked stiffly through the living room, and finally, his eyes fixed on the cold marble dining table. There, a document and a ring lay quietly. It was the wedding ring he had personally put on my finger, now lying there alone, like a silent mockery. His hand trembled as he picked up the document, the 5 large characters divorce agreement on the cover. He finally realized that this time, I was truly angry. "Julian, don't be like this. It's my fault. I shouldn't have dragged you to that place." Claire followed, and as soon as she entered, she saw his distraught appearance and immediately began her usual performance, with tears coming on cue. "I didn't know it was so dangerous there. I'm a victim too." She tried to grab Julian's arm, but he shook her off. Julian slowly raised his head, staring intently at Claire. His voice was hoarse and cold. "Did you know about the zombies in the ancient tomb?" Claire's crying stopped abruptly, and the color drained from her face. "With Ronan's help, I found the best lawyer and asset appraiser. Those joint accounts that once symbolized our unity as husband and wife, jointly held shares, the houses and jewelry he had given me. I listed them all out, one by one, demanding a complete division. I wanted to sever all ties with him, from finances to emotions. Julian probably learned about my actions from the lawyer, and was looking for me like a madman. He was like an enraged lion, trying to rush in, but Ronan blocked him at the door. Julian roared, his eyes bloodshot, demanding to see me. Ronan's tone remained calm, but with an undeniable firmness. "Mr. Julian, she doesn't want to see you. You are not welcome here." Julian refused to leave, even making a scene outside Ronan's store, drawing the attention of passers-by. I walked out of the store, looking expressionlessly at the man I had once loved to the core. When he saw me, a flash of ecstasy crossed his eyes, and he reached out to grab me. "Julian," I coldly spoke, slamming the divorce agreement he hadn't signed yet onto his face. "Sign it. You and I ended the moment you killed the child I finally had." He froze, his face filled with disbelief, his lips moving slightly, before finally finding his voice after a long pause. "Child? What child?" He probably thought I was lying, using any means necessary to get a divorce. Julian used all his connections to investigate. Soon, reports were placed before him. My medical records, ultrasound, and the obstetrician's diagnosis. The doctor told him in person that I was indeed pregnant, but because of my special constitution and weak foundation, this child was hard-won. Julian trembled, holding the reports. He remembered the scene in the ancient tomb where he pushed me away, causing me to hit the stone wall, remembered my pale face and desperate eyes. It turned out he had personally killed his own child. At that very moment, Evidence of his suspected illegal trafficking of antiques was made public in its entirety. The news caused a public uproar. This shocking scandal directly triggered a public relations crisis for the group, and the stock price plummeted, evaporating billions in a single day. The Fu family's phone was ringing off the hook. Julian's father, the always aloof chairman of the Fu Corporation, smashed his favorite antique vase in his office in anger. He roared at Julian, berating him for ruining himself and almost ruining the entire Fu family for a woman with a venomous heart. In his rage, he finally revealed a secret that Julian never knew. The Fu Corporation's crucial overseas projects in recent years were all secured through the energy and connections behind my master's sect. He gave his distraught son a final order. I don't care what method you use, at any cost bring Arya back to me. Julian believed that Claire had instigated the divorce between me and him. So he began to retaliate. Online, the public opinion about her being scheming and malicious, designing and framing others, was overwhelming. The so-called socialite friends who used to fawn over her were now avoiding her, afraid of catching bad luck. Julian drove her out of the mansion, her bank cards were frozen, and overnight, she became destitute. The partners she had deceived, the luxury store bills she had owed, all came rushing in, quickly leaving her with huge debts and a miserable life. However, this was only the beginning. Julian's hatred for her was far deeper than she had imagined. He had people dig up all her past scandals and make them public. It turned out that she wasn't a wealthy heiress at all. Her family was ordinary. Her so-called socialite status was just an illusion she had created by relying on her looks and excellent acting skills, constantly mingling in wealthy circles. Even worse, she had used the same methods to swindle money from several wealthy businessmen, but they had kept quiet to save face. At her wit's end, Claire found Julian one last time. She waited for him downstairs at his company for 3 days and 3 nights, finally blocking him. She threw herself at his feet, crying hysterically, with none of her past pride and scheming, only humble entreaty. Julian, for the sake of our years of acquaintance, please save me. I really know I was wrong. She thought that their many years of friendship could at least buy her a hint of his soft-heartedness. She was wrong. Julian just looked down at her, his eyes devoid of warmth, as if looking at an insignificant piece of trash. He coldly took out his phone and pressed the record button. He looked at her and slowly began, guiding her in a calm tone. He made her, in desperation, personally admit all the details of how she was jealous of me, how she bought the map, how she plotted to frame me, and how she intended to monopolize the treasure. Unaware, every word of her pleas for mercy became evidence of sending herself to prison. After the recording was finished, Julian didn't even glance at her again. He turned and, without hesitation, handed the complete recording over to the police himself. When Claire was taken away by the police, she still had an incredulous expression on her face. She probably couldn't understand, even in death, why the man who had once protected her in every way would become so heartless. In the end, Claire was sentenced for multiple crimes, including intentional injury, fraud, and tomb raiding, and she would likely spend the rest of her life in prison. To beg for my forgiveness, Julian sent limited edition luxury cars, downtown mansions, and sky-high jewelry from auctions to me like running water. However, I returned all these things untouched. He didn't give up. When he finally found me, he saw that Ronan and I were sitting at a bustling roadside food stall. Ronan was lowering his head, peeling a shrimp for me with a focused and gentle expression. I was smiling at him, the kind of smile Julian once thought belonged only to him. The scene before his eyes was like the sharpest thorn, piercing deeply into his heart. Intense jealousy and remorse almost devoured him. After all methods failed, Julian went for broke. He used the public relations power of the Fu Group to hold a grand press conference. Under the spotlights, he looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot, and he publicly apologized to me in front of the national media. He tearfully confessed his stupidity, arrogance, and coldness, admitting that he had failed me, hurt me, and even personally killed our child. He exposed all his faults to the sunlight, humbled himself to the dust, trying to use this method to create public pressure and force me to turn back. His performance was indeed successful, and the internet was filled with sympathy for him and accusations of my inhumanity. However, my response made him lose face again. The day after his press conference, A strictly worded lawyer's letter was sent directly to the president's office of the Fu Group. In the lawyer's letter, I clearly warned him that his actions constituted serious harassment against me. This public lawyer's letter was like a bucket of ice water, and he realized that I really wasn't going to forgive him, but he still wouldn't give up. While Julian was staging one solo act after another, my life was incredibly peaceful. Ronan always quietly stayed by my side. He took me to visit old traditional Chinese medicine practitioners hidden in the mountains, and used gentle prescriptions to gradually heal my damaged body. Together, we restored those dilapidated ancient books, sunlight filtering through the window lattices and spilling onto the yellowed pages, the years serene and beautiful. Julian, probably seeing that Ronan and I were growing closer, finally had malicious thoughts. He attempted to use the Fu family's commercial influence to suppress Ronan. He thought that dealing with a small antique dealer was just a matter of lifting a finger. But he soon discovered he was terribly wrong. Ronan's background was far deeper and more powerful than he had imagined, and he couldn't shake him in the slightest. This discovery made him feel even more powerless and frustrated. My body's recuperation was showing initial results, but a final medical report dealt me a heavy blow. The highly respected old Chinese medicine practitioner told me that although the residual poison from the poisoned arrow in the ancient tomb had been cleared, the toxins had caused irreversible damage to my body. In addition to the severe trauma of that miscarriage, the foundation of my body had been completely hollowed out. If I didn't find a way to recover, I wouldn't live for more than a few years. The moment I received the report, I didn't cry. I just felt like my heart was being tightly gripped by a cold hand, making it hard to breathe. Ronan found out about this news. He looked at me pretending to be strong, his eyes filled with pity. He told me about a medicine called the resurrection grass, which grew in extremely dangerous places, could cure all kinds of poisons, strengthen the body's foundation, and had the effect of defying fate. He told me that he had already found the possible location where the herb grew, and he decided to go find that herb for me. I rejected his suggestion to act alone, and chose to set off with him. There are no walls that don't let the wind through. Julian somehow learned about our search for the medicine. He seized it like the last straw, regarding it as his only chance to redeem himself. He went mad, sparing no cost to use all the money and connections he could, mobilizing the most professional mountaineering and exploration teams, determined to find the medicine before us. He thought that as long as he could heal me, I might forgive him. With resources and manpower far exceeding ours, Julian's team indeed took the lead, and arrived at the legendary cliff where the resurrection grass grew. It was a cloud-shrouded, bottomless cliff, and the resurrection grass grew on a protruding rock in the middle of the cliff face. Julian was overjoyed, ignoring his subordinates' warnings, and climbed up himself. However, just as his fingertips were about to touch the resurrection grass, the rock under his feet loosened, he cried out in alarm, and fell off the cliff. Fortunately, he grabbed a tree on the cliff during the fall. When Ronan and I arrived at the cliff after a difficult journey, we saw this scene. Julian was struggling to hold on to the tree, and it looked like he wouldn't be able to last much longer. His professional team was helpless and anxiously running around in circles. Julian also saw us. When his eyes met mine, the madness and obsession in his eyes faded for the first time, replaced by a complex expression mixed with despair and relief. He used all his strength, roaring, his voice echoing through the valley. "Don't worry about me. Go get the medicine." At this moment, he may have truly awakened, but it was all too late. Ronan didn't move. He just turned his head and quietly looked at me. His eyes were as gentle and firm as ever, as if saying that no matter what decision I made, he would support it, to save him, or not to save him. This man who had once destroyed everything for me, now his life was hanging on my decision. Looking at him struggling in pain, the hatred in my heart seemed to quietly melt away a bit at this moment. Not forgiveness but relief. I took a deep breath and calmly said to Ronan, "Ronan, save him." I chose to stick to my original intention, rather than indulge in hatred. After hearing this, a comforting smile appeared on Ronan's face. He gently hummed in agreement, as if he knew I would choose this way all along. What happened next left Julian's subordinates dumbfounded. Without relying on any modern equipment, Ronan and I, with just a few ropes and our mutual understanding, put ropes around Julian. His team quickly pulled him up. Then Ronan leaped up, effortlessly landing on the rocks, picked the resurrection grass, and steadily handed it to me. Julian lay on the ground, gasping for breath. He looked at the unspoken understanding between us. At the natural way Ronan handed me the sacred herb. The shock in his eyes gradually turned into an unconcealable sadness. He finally understood completely at that moment. What he had lost was not just a woman who had loved him, an unborn child, but also a partner he had never truly approached or understood. And that person was now standing beside another man, radiating light and looking like a match made in heaven. After returning to the city, Julian didn't pester me anymore. He asked to meet me at a law firm. He said nothing, but silently signed his name on the divorce agreement that had already been prepared. Then he pushed a property transfer agreement towards me, representing half of his personal assets. He said it wasn't for me, but compensation for his unborn child. I looked at him. The bloodshot in his eyes was heavier than at the last press conference. He looked as if his soul had been extracted, leaving only an empty shell. I accepted the assets. But the day after receiving the money, I turned around and established a foundation in the joint names of myself and the child I never had. It was dedicated to supporting families who had lost children due to accidents, and to protecting endangered ancient cultural heritage. Perhaps that was the best comfort for that child. After taking the resurrection grass, my body miraculously recovered under Ronan's careful care. Those past pains and shadows were completely left behind as my body healed. I began to manage some of the family businesses again, my life busy and fulfilling. Ronan was always like a quiet tree, guarding me, not saying much, but always giving me the most solid support when I needed it. Our feelings, like tea brewing in warm water, gradually warmed up, and everything seemed to fall into place naturally. I accepted Ronan's proposal. We didn't have a grand Western wedding, but instead chose a Chinese wedding with only our closest relatives and friends. In the antique courtyard, I wore a phoenix coronet and embroidered robe, and he wore a red festive suit. In the presence of relatives and friends, we performed the 3 letters and 6 rites, and kowtowed to heaven and earth. There was no noisy media, no false socializing, only the most sincere blessings and the most profound vows, simple and solemn. A year later, the foundation and the family businesses of both sides were thriving under our joint management. I often followed Ronan to conduct archaeological explorations and cultural relic restoration work all over the country. In the sunshine, I had shed all my immaturity and pain. My brow showed a confidence and composure that had settled over time, and I was radiant with energy. Television news occasionally reported news about Julian. He had completely withdrawn from the Fu Group's business and devoted all his personal energy to charitable causes, especially in the field of archaeology and cultural relic protection where he had made mistakes. He spent the rest of his life trying to make up for his mistakes and never remarried. And news also came from the prison that Claire had failed to obtain parole because of her bad behavior in prison, repeatedly causing trouble. She would spend her long and regretful life in a cold prison cell. Ronan and I were standing side by side, making final preparations for the upcoming protective exploration work. The afternoon sun was warm and gentle, shining on us. Ronan turned his head and naturally, gently took my hand. The warmth in his palm made me feel extremely at ease. I turned my head and gave him a bright, heartfelt smile. There were no more shadows of the past in my eyes. Only infinite hope for the future and infinite love for the person beside me. I had finally found someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with me, see the world's scenery, and understand all my silences.